Okay, hello. Yeah, sorry, this will be in English because I have a bit handicap. I don't understand Finnish. I'm from Sweden, but yeah, Martin Holmgren is my name. I'm from Vectra. I'm a security engineer at Vectra. Been with the company for a couple of years, and I have a background in security, log systems, and all that type of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about the attack landscape that we see happening around today and those type of things. So I have with me Jonne.
Yes, eli Jonne Tuomela ja mä toimin Wesconilla tämmöisenä niin kuin kyberi- ja pre-sales-asiantuntijana. Ja täällä Martinin ja Vectran kanssa tehdään kovasti niin kuin yhteistyötä. But we will keep this presentation in English. So as part of my role, I do a lot of this sort of SOC, or Security Operations Center development. And quite often when I go into a SOC, I see, and it actually makes me kind of happy, I see these very structured, segmented divisions where you have network with their own team and their own tooling. You have cloud with their own team and their own tooling, because that makes it very easy for me to understand. But from an adversary point of view, or if we think like an attacker, they see things very differently. They see this haystack where it is full of complexity. It's full of these different vulnerabilities that are not visible to those who know how their SOC has been built. And this adversary type of thinking, or thinking like an attacker, is something that I really put a lot of focus on when I go into these SOCs, because that is what we are trying to protect against. So you got to think like that attacker. And attackers love these infrastructures where you have hundreds of thousands of different entities. And when we talk about entities, we are talking about all those different kind of components that make up your attack surface. They might be laptops and devices. They might be servers. Identities are a big one. Email addresses. All those different areas where attackers can exploit and find a way into an environment. And having a very segmented approach in the SOC means that you have a ton of different alarms. Alarms for the same event, alarms for different events. And if you have teams handling those different events, that leads to a lot of these blind spots in your event monitoring. And attackers love to be in those blind spots. They are hiding in plain sight, essentially. And they know that the SOC teams, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the tooling to actually correlate between these different attack surfaces and prioritize where they actually need to be defending or working to recognize the attacker. And identity is one of those key parts from an attacker's point of view. Because if I'm thinking, as an attacker, I can go into each of these different environments directly. If I want to attack a data center, then I can go directly through maybe a vulnerability in an application. Or if I want to attack perhaps someone's end device, I might go directly through an email. However, if I am targeting one of these identity providers, whether it's Entra ID in the cloud, it might be an identity provider in AWS, or it could be even an on-premise Active Directory. That gives me access to so many different paths. Paths that normally you don't think to defend against. You think externally that an attacker might access from an external to a data center, but you don't think that maybe from the Amazon infrastructure you might be accessing the data center, because there are links, perhaps VPN connections from or between the data center and between the cloud. And this is where one of those big challenges come from, is how do you defend against someone who has an identity that's in your organization? If someone has compromise an identity, they're doing exactly the same things that your employees might be doing. They might be logging into your Salesforce. They might be logging into your AWS and downloading stuff. And this is not something that is very easy to detect because you are doing exactly the things that your employees are doing, but it's just the attacker and a compromised account that's doing it. And you might be able to use some form of anomaly detection. Quite often in the industry, we speak about WEBA, User Entity and Behavior Analytics, which aims to find those anomalies if an employee is doing something that they don't usually do. But this is a big, this might cause a lot of noise in that environment. In fact, it usually is one of the big producers of noise when we are thinking in a SOC environment. For example, I will be in 2 weeks' time in Vietnam, working remotely, answering emails, maybe a mojito in hand, whereas there will be some poor IT or security person wondering why is there suddenly a laptop logging in from Vietnam, and they will be having a stressful day while trying to figure out if it's a legit compromised identity or not. My manager's in the back there, so I see him laughing that I'm not actually going to be working and drinking at the same time. But this is quite often how attackers operate. They are wanting to hide in that noise that might be created. They're using, a lot of times, living off the land as well. They are using the tools that are already in use in an environment. It might be PowerShell that they are using, and that is not creating anything all that major in terms of alerts. It might create something, but what priority is that being alerted on? If we're looking at some of the big attacks that are happening these days and the attack groups, they are all utilizing identities and they are all using these hybrid infrastructures. Groups like Midnight Blizzard, Scattered Spider, Black Basta, all super cool sounding names. I really like them. But they are experts in their business. They are experts in the cloud. They're experts in finding vulnerabilities in Entra ID. That is their day job. If we take a look at Midnight Blizzard a little bit closer, how many have heard of Midnight Blizzard before? It's probably maybe recently one of the bigger groups. Notably, they've been targeting a lot of government sector, large organizations, thought to be Russian, but I'm not sure has there been any kind of proof for that. But their focus isn't financial. Kimmo was talking a little bit early on the different motives of these groups, and they are more in the non-financial category where they're aiming to find information or they're trying to influence these governments or large organizations. And one of their major hacks recently was Microsoft, where they were able to password brute force into one of Microsoft's test tenants, and from there escalate. So it's one of those test environments where it does have a connection into production environments as well. So they were able to abuse the authorizations in that test environment in order to escalate privileges into production environments, and from that way register applications and then get access into emails. So they are starting from one system and moving into another with a very heavy focus on identity. And Scattered Spider is another one. Recently, about a week ago, they were in the news for a ransomware attack on Marks & Spencer, a department store in the UK. And then I think maybe their more high-profile attack has been the MGM Casino. And they are ransomware focused, they are financial focused, but the commonality is that they use a lot of social engineering, they use a lot of phishing, multi-factor authentication bypass to get into the systems. So they are heavily also focusing on that identity to get into the system and then deploy their ransomware. If we look deeper into what an actual attack might look like, sort of the steps for it, quite often it starts from a phishing email. This is by far the most common way that organizations get breached. And in this timeline, a phishing email was delivered at exactly 9 a.m. and at 9:02 there was already credentials captured. One of maybe the big weaknesses of a lot of these email protection systems is that they are API based. So if you are really quick when it comes to emails, you might very well have time to click on one of those links and input your credentials. If you ever want to play around with it, I suggest GoFish as like an application that you can use to craft your own phishing campaigns. It's actually a lot of fun. I tried it in AWS as well, but it got flagged as a malicious domain. Part of your statistic now. So once they have captured those credentials, they move into M365. And Copilot is one of those big advantages for attackers these days in that they can find information so much quicker. Just like the benefit that it provides your own employees, asking it in plain text where it can find information, what information it has, attackers are very much using this as well. And in this case, they can find a network map and a jump box all in 4 minutes time of actually logging into the environment. Copilot is it's a wonderful thing. And then at the same time, we are establishing a command and control connection on that endpoint. So we can do a little bit of local recon, try find where that jump box is, and use those credentials that we have gotten from M365, from that SaaS platform, into getting a deeper foothold into the network and moving laterally. And then from the jump box, we steal some credentials to privileged account, and we use those credentials to move into AWS. And then we exfil data from there as part of the end of the ransom attack. So this is one of those very common attack paths that we see, where it is touching multiple parts of your attack surface. It's not staying in its lane. It's not staying in that silo of only network, only identity, and the like. And this happens very quickly. This whole attack took under 3 hours across that hybrid environment, and they are hiding in the noise that they are creating. When you have kind of protection systems in place for each of these different silos, they're all alerting at the same time, potentially for many different things. If you have anomalies, they're hiding in that noise as well, that an anomaly-based detection system brings just naturally. So these are kind of the key points that we see when we are talking about hybrid attacks. If you have a hybrid enterprise, you will hit these hybrid attacks. And Martin will talk a little bit closer on how we defend against that attacker perspective.
Yeah, let's change places. Okay, yeah. So there is a bunch of challenges with the hybrid enterprise, the hybrid attacks, and how to actually detect them, be able to become resilient against that. So I think that today most companies, they work with this sort of scenario that you need to store everything. You need to store logs, you need to store data, and put it in either a CM system, a data lake, or some other analytics tools. Try to build your rules around it and analyze that. That is something that still probably you need to do partially, but for detection in these days it becomes really ineffective. It is really a lot of data. It's apart from being ineffective, it's super expensive also these days. Storage is somewhat expensive still, but the tools that we are using today, we have Sentinel as a great example in Microsoft environments. It's super expensive, and you have to have certain license levels, etc. You have on-premise versions of these type of tools that are also super expensive. Yet also they are very, very slow when you're trying to search the data and so on. If you want to do this with speed, you probably need something that is more of a streaming type of tool. You need to get access to the data in almost real time to be able to keep up with the attack, and you need to get it from all the places that you or looking all across your whole environment, basically, all of these attack surfaces. In a CM system, the building of rules, the definition of that, the running of rules, and so on, it is quite manual still. You have a lot of work to create the rules. You have to tune them endlessly. You have to have the data in the correct form, and so on. I come from that background. I know how hard that is. I've worked as a consultant across Europe for many large organizations, and I saw a lot of these projects where they were implementing CM systems, and it was years into the project, and they still had like less than 30 rules that were actually working and producing value. Then maybe they had like 50 rules that were that they were working on, that trying to get value out of, but they were producing so much noise that it was like, yeah, you couldn't do anything useful with it. It was hundreds of thousands of alerts in some instances, in some companies where I came in, and that is like, what do the SOC do when they see 100,000 alerts when they start working? I mean, you just ignore that. It's too much. So you need to find more efficient ways of working with that. So that is a big challenge. So moving on here. So from our point of view, there is some ways of doing this and try to make it better. So to simplify, it's really hard. We still need to get the coverage. We need to see all the data. We need to collect the data from the different attack surfaces that you have in these hybrid environments. That is what we call the coverage part. You also need to get clarity into your in your SOC about what is happening. So that means that you need to be able to detect fast. You need to be detecting the correct stuff really fast. And then you have to have the control over this, that you need to use tools in order to get the control, in order to get all of these other things. You need to use tools that helps you filter out all the noise, and basically what I'm saying here, maximize the talent. Allow your SOC team, allow your analysts, all these people that you have invested so much in, to do what they are really good at, not spending time on endless tuning tasks and so on. So that is where Vectra has been doing our work. So basically, talking about this, about collecting the right data across your whole attack surface. Well, that is really easy to say, collecting the right data. Yeah, that is not so easy to do, and that is, but it's still something that you need to do. We cannot continue with the CMs, with all those stuff, and keep working in the silos. So you need to do that work. If you want to do this yourself, basically, you need to do that work. But what Vectra has done is that we have then done that work for you to look at what is the right data for covering the hybrid attacks. So that is something that we can deliver for you and help you out with this. For the clarity part, we can also help with getting the different attackers signal, the attacker signal across the whole. Sorry, I'm a bit sick, so my brain is scrambling. so that is not what I'm also about to say. The middle part is about the AI and the running of the AI. The way that we see that we need to do these type of things is to use AI, to be able to, when we have all that data that we have collected from all these different sources, we need to use efficient means of working with that data to analyze the data for the attacker behaviors. And when we are looking at that, we need to use the AI to do it, because working manual that we have been doing for all these years, that is too slow. It is also something that means that we are always working with old data. We are looking at the things that we have already seen and experienced, and those type of things. We are looking for basically building signatures of an attack. That is what a rule is. It's basically a signature. But with AI, we can use different types of AI. We can look at other types of patterns. And what we do is that we look at behaviors. We basically look at the attacker behavior. So what does that mean? Well, that means that what does an attacker do when they enter an environment? What does an attacker do when they take over an account? The thing is that it is often very, very similar what they will do when they enter, almost all the time. If they are compromising a host in an environment, an attacker, they have to do a certain amount of steps. They need to take certain actions to understand where am I, in what environment, what can I see, what accounts do I have access to, what can I do, where can I move in this environment. And what do they use then? They have to use the network. The network speaks TCP/IP, and that is standardized. So they need to use certain commands. They need to use certain protocols. This is not that much of a rocket science. It doesn't really matter what tools they are using to do that. They still have to do the same behaviors. And that is what we do, that we look at the behavior. What are you doing on the network? We build the sort of baselines and the knowledge about each machine on the network and on the identities on the network, but also now then connecting that into the hybrid environments about what do we do across the hybrid environments with the identities. And that means that we need to have very specific AI for every specific type of task that we're trying to detect. So there's difference on the network for the different type of behaviors there. And the same when you're moving into the cloud. The different types of clouds, the Entra ID, the Azure, AWS, everyone, they have their own tools. They produce their own logs and data to correlate. All of that has to be adapted, and you have to use that to be able to correlate that into a single thing. So that is what we can do with our tool. But of course that is not enough to make sort of sense of that. We can then produce a lot of alerts. Well, yeah, that's great. But then we will give you another 100,000 alerts in a new tool. That is no good. So that is where we can do additional things for you, where we can help focus, use the AI to also focus in on what is actually important in the environment. So that is also to give control over that. This, of course, the whole thing that the tool that we have, the platform that we call it, that was really hard to find something that could work for this. This is not something that you can go out and buy and say we want to do this and that, because we want to cover all these surfaces. We, as a company, we started with the network part. That's where we come from. Some people may have heard of us before, that we are an NDR company, network detection and response. But we are so much more than that today, so because we want to cover all of these surfaces. So basically, our goal was to find out, or find a way of building an engine that could cover all of these surfaces and scale from really small companies like 100 employees up to the big, large enterprises. So basically, we had to go out and check the streets. So first we started with trying to use the commercial stuff that could be used, but we found it too expensive and not fast enough. It was too slow. We then tried to use the open source stuff, also too limiting. It was not really giving us what we needed. So we actually had to build it on our own. So what we have today is actually a third generation of the platform. So it's not, it's quite tested at the moment. And that means that we can now stitch together detections across from the network, across the identities, public cloud, SaaS, whatever, into a single user interface in almost real time. So that is really impressive. I have to move along here. I realize I've spent too much time talking rubbish. So that's the summary of this. A sort of XDR system, some people would like to call it. I don't like that abbreviation because every company has their own XDR definition, and so do apparently we also. And we do XDR by covering all of these attack surfaces except the endpoint. We don't cover the endpoint directly. We cover them by integrating with them, pulling in the data, detections, etc., so that we can analyze that also. But we don't do it ourselves. So we integrate with your defenders and the CrowdStrikes, etc. But this is also just a start of the tool, as I was mentioning, to get the coverage. We also needed to get this into the clarity and all these type of things that I was mentioning, and that's where we are using different where we call it AI agents on top of all the detection parts. We have a lot of AI agents that also will perform automatic triage, remove noise, so that we can see this is the really important part, or rather say AI triage is saying this is not important. That's the key with the AI triage. With the AI prioritization agent, we focus on that these detections on these entities, accounts or hosts, they are the ones that are really important, and these are the ones that you need to focus on. So this is where the tool does the work of a SOC analyst for you, and this is what we can see delivers a lot of value for a lot of organizations. And then the final agent, AI agent that we have that is doing AI work on all those detections is the AI stitching agent. And this is the one that stitches together the identity across all the surfaces, the network identity in Active Directory, with the Entra ID, with the SAML, the thing we have in AWS and in Azure, because it's usually the same identity, the same person, but they are using it in different surfaces. And we need to stitch that together to understand that this account is compromised and it's being used all across your environment. So these are the key points where we are being active with our AI agents and so on. A quick example is that the efficiency of the tool is that we can observe, this is what was from a large insurance provider in America, where we observed almost 140,000 different events over this 90-day period in their environment. And out of this, actually the AI triage, it automatically removed 60,000 of those detections. That this is just noise. This is normal for this environment. It stitched together 9,000 detections and put them into the correlated them onto the accounts or hosts, etc. And that could be something, but it also helped to prioritize that these are the ones that are really important. The 24. So over this 90-day period, they only had 24 really prioritized things to investigate. So this is where the AI that is covering the whole environment can really help to reduce the noise and help your teams work on what is really important to find that what Jonne was showing in the first picture, this stack of needles, but it's actually finding the bad needle in the stack of needles. So it's not even looking for the haystack or the needle in the haystack. It's needles in needles. So that is what we can do basically. I'm running out of time now, so I hope I gave a somewhat good picture of what Vectra is, and if it's interesting, please reach out. So yeah, thank you.